I'm going to give the whole secret of the company away. There's a wonderful talent that sits here at Golden Artist Colors. How it got created really was the inspiration from my mother and father. My dad had a long career making paint for artists, starting in the 1930s with my great uncle Leonard Beaucourt. Probably people don't know of the Beaucourt Company, but it had a significant history being in Manhattan during the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and a major movement was afoot in New York. And Beaucourt was right in the middle of that. It was one of the only places that had a stove. So all the artists that had cold water flats and needed to warm up in the morning, Rothko, Motherwell, Pollock, I mean, you had an amazing group of artists that loved visiting the Beaucourt shop. It became the meeting place and sharing of information with one another. My dad joined my uncle in 36 and then continued as a paint maker. They grew the company little by little, making more products, eventually venturing into the first company to make acrylic, the Magna acrylic, which was an important product for Lewis and Roy Lichtenstein and a bunch of other artists at the time. My dad retired in 72. They bought a farmhouse in 1968 in central New York, and they quickly recognized after some time that my dad needed something to do and he was underfoot and my mom was going to kill him. So this is really the beginning of Golden Artist. He called me up with my mother's urging and said, "Do you want to make paint for my friends?" And I said, "I don't know. That doesn't sound like a great idea." But a year later, we started the company in 1980, and I would go down to Manhattan and bring the acrylic paint. At the time, we made about 30 colors, and I'd bring it down to artists that Sam knew over the years and say, if you like the paint, give me names of other people so I don't have to make cold sales. And if you don't like it, tell me what you want and we'll make it for you. That simple idea. Early on, we were making paint for Andy Warhol. We were making paint for Roy Lichtenstein. We were making paint for all of these folks because they really did want that kind of connectivity, that kind of control over the materials. So what began as just an idea to keep us alive and floating, now we have a lab of over 24 folks and a whole custom division that makes individual products for artist needs. Almost every invention that we created came from an artist saying, "Can you do this?" And you cock your head a little bit and say, "I don't know." And some of them are silly ideas. I want to paint underwater. I need a shower paint. So it's like, okay. And at first you think, that sounds really silly. And then you start thinking, oh, maybe there's something in this space. Some of the first things that we did were Larry Poons said, "Can't you make my gels thicker?" Because he's throwing the paint against the wall. He wants something stiffer. So we made what he named it heavy gel. And another artist came to his studio and saw Larry Poon's heavy gel and said, "Oh, Mark, can you make mine stiffer than Larry's?" And so we made extra heavy gel. And then another artist said, "I don't like all this thick stuff. Can you make it thinner?" And we made soft gel. And then artists would say, we were working with Al Held. He said, "I can't stand your paint. It's all too glossy." So we made him matte colors, which eventually, became matte colors and then eventually became right now the So Flat. But we also made matte gels. So we took the extra heavy, the regular, and the soft, and we made matte. And then artists said, "Gosh, I'd really like semi-gloss or satin." It's like, well, you just mix the two. And it's like, no, you do it. And so we did. And it was like by 92, we looked at all of these gels, 27 different gels and mediums, and said, we got to get rid of some of these because I'm sure it's just too big of a spectrum. And what we realized, everyone was doing really well. Artists by themselves were seeing the value of what they could do in this different space with the acrylic, using it as, in effect, a transparent watercolor in ways that I didn't have the imagination to understand how they were going to do it until they showed me what they were doing with these things. And then eventually every company making acrylic started producing all these different gels and mediums. I love oil paint. I love the luminosity of oil paint and the kinds of ways that the oils move from very thick to very thin, and the kind of things that happen, that dramatic changes. And that's why we were so excited with so many of the new colors that we were able to bring that had the same quality in acrylic, to have those deep mass tones and those beautiful undertones. But artists get that right away. There's very little explaining that we have to do about color, but the mediums, that's really a unique space for many artists, and we wind up having to do a lot of education around those things, which is why we have had a large network of teachers around the country, around the world. We are such material geeks here. So many of our chemists are also artists. Our MAS team, artists, teachers, they've taught at college level, but they've also kind of come to this place where they can really explore materials in a really significant way. Because they're artists, they also have that real dedication to making sure that we provide as much accurate information as we possibly can. And we're really proud of the research that the team has been able to do. We've published probably 9 articles in significant conservation journals and presented at the Tate and at the Getty and various institutions around the world. I think the artists really appreciate that kind of dedication to that work. And I think part of our obligation is to the legacy, the visual legacy of our era, of the era that Golden Artist Colors continues to make products for the last 42 years. We are responsible, just as Dad, we were responsible to his friends. Don't mess around with your friends. And obviously that responsibility has grown significantly, that we're responsible for those artists that are using our materials, to make sure that we do make those choices about the longest lasting pigments, the best binders that we can use, the best materials that we can use in each of the brands. But as technology grows, is to understand how can we reduce our footprint. What are the things that we need to be able to do as a company? We've introduced a reverse osmosis system within the water that we use, because it's a responsibility, to be guardian of the waters. We're able to reuse about 70% of the water that we take, that gets recycled and used throughout the plant as well. But you're still creating these polymers, these synthetic polymers, and that's another issue. But it is possible, I think, in the near future, to be able to make the acrylic from more sustainable materials. The other sustainable material we make is from linseed oil, and it's a beautiful product. The most amazing thing about oil paint compared to acrylic, I get 4 ingredients. I have linseed oil, I have pigment, maybe I'll have a barium sulfate, some kind of solid modifier to make the paint so it's not goobery or long or stringy, and a dryer. And you get to play with those few ingredients, and every pigment has a different quality, has a different sense, has a different dynamic. And it's been the most wonderful thing to recognize that after 600 years, you think everything should be known about oil paint is known, and we're still discovering new things about the oil paint. We are delighted with all the support Opus has given us over the years, and dedicated resource, allowing us to do the education and allowing staff the time to also participate. We understand that we take people off the floor and we're asking them to learn about our materials and to be more proficient in that. And that's been something that I think has been really profound with the support. So it's been a long relationship, and delightful to have the kind of support that we've had from the team. We all have a privilege to work within this creative community. We get to work together with some of the most creative people in the world. And that's not hyperbole. That is real. And if you don't enjoy that sort of connection, do something else, because there's a lot more successful ways to have a retail location. We're not selling sneakers and we're not selling food. We're selling artist materials, and many people are actually uh, they're resistant to walking into an art material store because they think they have to know everything, and that's some of what the team at Opus provides, is that welcoming kind of environment where anyone can come on in and feel like they can get the information that they need. We invited a community of artists, of our suppliers, including our art retailers, to come to New Berlin and to share with us what they thought Golden should be doing and what it should be about. And they came up with this idea that was much bigger than anything I thought it could be. And the idea is uh, bridging creative communities and inspiring global change through the arts. Now that's really big. Inspiring global change through the arts, and it's been my mission to be able to reach out to creative communities and to ask, how can we contribute? What are ways that we can help, and to create that kind of that change and the value that art has to all of us.